The winter sky above Toronto shimmered like glass, pale and weightless, as if the city itself held its breath for the perfect wedding. Inside the Crystal Lotus Banquet Hall, hundreds of guests swayed under chandeliers draped in gold. The scent of jasmine and roasted almonds floated through the air, and laughter rang out between the rhythmic beats of a Punjabi drumline. On stage stood Leah Kapoor, radiant in crimson silk embroidered with tiny threads of silver. Her hands, decorated with henna patterns that told stories of love and destiny, trembled slightly as she adjusted her veil. Across from her was Raj Malhotra, the groom, steady, polite, and reserved. He wore a cream-colored sherwani, the kind of traditional outfit that made older relatives nod in approval. Together, they looked like the perfect match, two children of Indian immigrants, fulfilling the dream their parents had carried across oceans. Everyone in the room saw what they wanted to see, a modern love story wrapped in cultural pride. Cameras flashed. Uncles cheered. Aunties whispered about how handsome and stable Raj seemed. An engineer with a secure job at a financial firm. A man who would give Leah the kind of life every parent wished for their daughter. But amid the music and confetti, Leah's smile was rehearsed. She laughed on cue, posed when prompted, and looked adoringly at Raj only when the photographers circled close. Deep inside, she felt an ache she couldn't name, a heaviness that crept in every time someone said how lucky she was. Her friends had noticed it, the way she'd grown quiet in the weeks leading up to the ceremony. Leah had once been the bright spark in every room, witty, confident, a woman with her own style and rhythm. But tradition had a way of pressing down on individuality, softening rebellion into obedience. Her parents adored Raj's family. They said he was safe, reliable, the kind of man you could trust your life with. And in their world, that meant more than passion, more than compatibility. Raj, meanwhile, believed he had found stability, not just in Leah, but in the image they created together. He was the kind of man who liked things structured, predictable. In Leah, he saw grace and modern beauty. In their union, a bridge between old values and new life. To him, the marriage was a blessing, one that came after years of quietly following expectations. When the priest's chant reached its final verse, Leah's mother wiped away tears. The couple circled the sacred fire 7 times, sealing their vows. The crowd erupted in cheers. Perfect, someone whispered. Just perfect. But perfection can be deceptive. Later that night, after the last guest left and the laughter dissolved into silence, Leah stood before the hotel mirror, still wearing her jewelry. The heavy gold necklace felt like armor. Raj was in the adjoining room, talking softly to his parents on the phone, thanking them for the beautiful ceremony. Leah looked at her reflection, the bride everyone adored, and felt a distance she couldn't bridge. Her heart was somewhere else, tethered to a truth she'd buried months ago. She was in love with another man. When Raj finally entered the room, he smiled, uncertain but sincere. "You look beautiful," he said. Leah turned to face him, returned a small, practiced smile, and whispered, "Thank you." They stood in silence for a moment. Two strangers wrapped in wedding silk, surrounded by the echoes of their family's dreams. Outside, snow began to fall, soft, soundless, endless. And though no one knew it yet, that same silence, the kind that feels peaceful at first, would one day return to swallow everything beneath the ice. In the first few days after the wedding, everything looked picture-perfect from the outside. Leah and Raj's social media accounts were flooded with messages from friends and relatives. "You two are goals. The most beautiful couple. God bless this union." But inside their Toronto apartment, the golden glow of newlywed life began to dim almost immediately. Raj followed his usual patterns. Up early, coffee brewed precisely the way he liked it, emails checked before sunrise. Leah, once the life of every gathering, began sleeping late, scrolling her phone beneath the blankets long after he left for work. When he came home, she was polite, distant, and always distracted. They ate dinner together, sometimes. The conversation was small talk at best. Raj would ask about her day. Leah would answer in short sentences. It was fine, busy, just tired. The walls between them were invisible but thick. One evening, a week after the wedding, Raj stood in the kitchen washing dishes. The faint sound of Leah's laughter drifted from the bedroom, soft, hushed, and private. He froze, listening. Her voice was lighter than he'd heard it in days, tinged with a warmth that had vanished from their own conversations. He turned off the faucet and leaned closer to the doorway. Through the half-closed door, Leah's words floated out in fragments. No, of course I miss you. I know, but I had to go through with it. My parents wouldn't stop until I agreed. Her tone cracked with quiet frustration, then softened. I just need time, okay? I'll figure it out. Each word hit Raj like a blow. He stayed still, staring at the floor tiles, listening as she whispered about a man she loved, someone she had been seeing before the marriage, someone she never stopped thinking about. She confessed she didn't love Raj. Not really, that this marriage was something she had to survive until she could leave. The sound of her voice was calm, certain, and that calm was worse than cruelty. Raj didn't confront her. Not that night, not the next day, not even the day after. Instead, he moved through their life as if nothing had changed. He drove her to work, made dinner, smiled when relatives called. But behind that quiet exterior, something in him had shifted, something deep, fragile, and irreversible. At the office, coworkers noticed the change. Raj stopped joining lunch breaks. His eyes seemed distant, his tone clipped. Just tired, he told them. Married life. At home, he began to observe Leah more closely. How long her phone stayed lit in her hand. How often she smiled at incoming messages. The way she kept her phone screen tilted away from him just slightly. One evening, while Leah showered, Raj scrolled through her call history. A name appeared repeatedly, one he didn't recognize. He wrote it down on a scrap of paper, folded it once, and slipped it into his wallet. That night, Leah came to bed humming a tune from her playlist. Raj lay beside her, eyes open, his mind unraveling quietly in the dark. She turned to him and asked, "Are you okay?" "Yes," he said flatly. "Just thinking." She smiled faintly and rolled over, drifting into sleep. Raj remained still, staring at the ceiling. The shadows above him seemed to shift, melting, forming shapes like cracks spreading through something once solid. It was the beginning of an obsession, the kind that grows silently, like frost creeping across glass. And by the time Leah noticed the chill between them, it was already too late. The tension between them had become a quiet presence, invisible, but heavy enough to fill every corner of their apartment. Raj spoke less. Leah avoided eye contact. They moved around each other like ghosts, inhabiting the same space for appearance's sake. When Leah suggested they still take their honeymoon, it was less out of excitement and more an attempt to reset the mood. "Let's just get away for a few days," she said one evening, her tone careful. "You've been working too much. We both need a break." Raj nodded, his expression unreadable. "Somewhere quiet, then." He mentioned Muskoka, a place he'd read about online. A winter paradise, only a few hours north of Toronto. Cabins by frozen lakes, snow-covered pines, fireplaces, silence. Leah agreed, relieved by his calm. She took it as a sign that things might finally heal. The drive north was uneventful, the highway lined with endless white. Leah played soft music. Raj kept both hands on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. The deeper they drove into Muskoka, the quieter it became, a kind of silence that swallowed sound, where even the snow seemed to fall in slow motion. Their cabin sat by the edge of a large lake, its surface smooth and white as porcelain. Inside, a small fire crackled in the stone hearth. Leah unpacked their suitcases, humming to herself, trying to bring warmth to the stillness. Raj watched her from the doorway, her laughter, her ease, her oblivion, and something inside him hardened further. That night, Leah made tea and snapped photos of the cabin for social media. One picture captured her in front of the window, steam curling around her face, the caption beneath it simple: "Peace, snow, and love." The post would later become haunting, the final image of her alive. They ate dinner together in near silence. Raj asked about her job. Leah spoke about an upcoming store promotion. They looked like any other couple, two people sharing soup and wine under candlelight, but the calmness between them was artificial, stretched thin, trembling. As Leah laughed softly at something on her phone, Raj excused himself and stepped outside. The night was bitter cold. The lake glimmered faintly under the moonlight, frozen over but not fully solid. A sign by the dock read caution. Ice conditions may vary. He walked toward it, the snow crunching beneath his boots. A few steps onto the frozen surface, he paused, listening to the faint groan of shifting ice beneath his feet. He smiled faintly. Back inside, Leah was curled up by the fire, flipping through photos of their wedding. When Raj returned, his face was calm again, the mask perfectly fitted. "You were outside?" she asked. "Just checking the view," he said. "It's beautiful here." Leah nodded, not noticing the way he watched her. Steady, silent, calculating. Outside, the temperature continued to drop, the wind whispering across the lake. From a cabin window, it looked like peace. But beneath that frozen surface, the first cracks were already forming. Morning came in soft gray light, spilling through the cabin windows. Frost etched delicate lines on the glass, and the lake beyond stretched white and silent. A world suspended between beauty and danger. Leah stood by the window in her wool scarf, holding a mug of tea. "It's so still," she whispered. "Almost unreal." Raj, sitting at the small table behind her, smiled faintly. "Perfect for pictures," he said. She turned, her face brightening. "You think so?" He nodded. "We should take a walk before it gets too cold. The light is perfect right now." It was such an ordinary suggestion, delivered with warmth, even care. Leah didn't think twice. She finished her tea, wrapped her scarf tighter, and slipped on her boots. Outside, the air was razor-sharp. Their breath rose in thin clouds as they made their way down the narrow path to the lake. The snow crunched softly beneath their steps. A family with sleds passed them on their way back to the cabins, waving cheerfully. Leah smiled and waved back, her cheeks pink from the cold. At the lake's edge, several locals were skating near the shore, their laughter echoing faintly in the open air. The ice near the dock had been tested daily, safe, solid. A yellow sign stood nearby. "Caution! Ice conditions may vary beyond marked areas." Raj glanced at it for only a second. "Let's go a little farther," he said. "There's a spot out there. The view of the trees is incredible." Leah hesitated. "Farther out? Are you sure it's safe?" He smiled reassuringly. "Of course. Look." He stepped forward onto the ice, his boots tapping the surface. Solid as concrete. She laughed softly and followed, trusting him. The first few steps were steady. The lake stretched wide and empty, the white expanse dazzling under the low sun. Leah lifted her phone, snapping photos. "It's beautiful," she said, "like something out of a dream." They kept walking. The skaters behind them grew smaller, their voices fading until there was nothing but wind and silence. From a distance, they looked like two small figures framed against the horizon, a perfect honeymoon picture. But Raj's steps were measured, deliberate. He led her past the safe boundary, toward the center, where he already knew the ice was thin. Before the trip, he had read about this lake, how currents below the surface kept certain areas unstable even in deep winter. He had memorized the warnings. He knew exactly where to stop. Leah trailed behind him, laughing as she slipped slightly. "Raj, wait, slow down." He turned, smiling. "Come here. It's even prettier from here." She approached, phone in hand. "Just one more picture," she said. "Then I'm going back inside. My fingers are freezing." The wind brushed across the open expanse. A sharp crack echoed, faint at first, then louder. Leah froze. "What was that?" she asked. "Just the ice shifting," Raj replied evenly. "It does that sometimes." But when she took one more step, the sound returned, a deeper, hollow groan from beneath. She looked down. The surface beneath her boots shimmered, spiderweb cracks glinting under a thin layer of snow. "Raj," she began, and then the ice gave way. The white surface collapsed into black water, swallowing her in an instant. Leah screamed, a raw, terrified sound that tore across the lake and vanished just as quickly. She thrashed, gloves slapping against jagged edges, her breath turning to mist. "Raj," she gasped. "Help me, please." He stood several feet away, his clothes untouched by spray, his face blank. For a moment, he simply watched. Her voice broke into choking sobs, her arms slowing as the freezing water pulled her down. Raj called her name once, not a cry, just a statement, and then turned back toward the shore. By the time the lake stilled again, there was no trace of her, only shattered ice drifting like glass across the surface. He reached solid ground, brushing snow from his gloves. When a nearby skater waved, asking if everything was all right, Raj gave a small nod. "She went for a walk in the woods," he said calmly. "She'll be back soon." And then he walked away, leaving behind nothing but silence, and a lake that had swallowed the truth whole. By late afternoon, the golden light over Muskoka had dimmed into a pale gray haze. The families who had been skating near the shore packed up and left, unaware of what had just happened only a few hundred yards away. The lake had returned to silence, smooth, unbroken, deceitfully calm. Raj walked back to the cabin alone. His boots left a single line of footprints trailing from the lake's edge, quickly filling with drifting snow. Inside, the fireplace still glowed faintly, and Leah's phone charger sat coiled on the nightstand, her pink scarf folded neatly on the chair. Everything looked untouched, as if she had simply stepped out for a moment. He checked his watch, exhaled slowly, then dialed the front desk. "My wife went for a walk in the woods a few hours ago," he said, his tone steady. "She hasn't come back yet. Maybe she lost track of time." The receptionist's voice softened. "The forest paths can be confusing at night, sir. We'll call local authorities right away." Within the hour, the Ontario Provincial Police were on site. Officers in bright winter jackets spread out across the woods, calling Leah's name, their voices echoing faintly between the trees. Dogs sniffed at the snow, circling, searching for a trail. Raj stood near the cabin, answering questions with calm precision. Where she went, what she wore when he last saw her. She said she wanted to take a few pictures by the trees, he told them. "I thought she'd be back by now." His tone was soft, his expression appropriately worried. To the officers, he looked like a husband holding himself together by sheer will. But one detail unsettled them. The dogs lost her scent almost immediately, not in the forest, but near the edge of the frozen lake. The following morning, the search expanded. Local volunteers joined the police, combing every trail and frozen field within a mile radius. Helicopters circled above, their blades scattering snow across the pines. The news spread quickly. Newlywed woman missing in Muskoka. Reporters descended on the small town, cameras flashing, microphones thrust forward. Raj stood before them, his hands folded, his eyes downcast. "Please," he said, his voice trembling just enough, "if anyone has seen her, please help us bring her home." To the public, he seemed heartbroken, the image of a man shattered by tragedy. The video clip aired that night on local news, and sympathy poured in from Toronto's South Asian community. But Detective Nora Clark, assigned to the case, wasn't convinced. Something in his composure fell off. Not grief, not fear, but calculation. She had seen real panic before, and Raj's stillness didn't fit. Her instincts sharpened when she reviewed his statements. She went into the woods, but which direction? He couldn't say. She had her phone with her? Yes, he insisted. But Leah's call log showed no outgoing messages afternoon, and the timestamp of his smartwatch, data quietly collected in the background, revealed something odd. He had been stationary for 30 full minutes in one location that afternoon. That location was the center of the lake. By the second night, temperatures dropped sharply. The searchers' breath came in clouds as they trudged through the snow. No footprints, one officer said, scanning the icy expanse with his flashlight. No drag marks. Nothing. Raj sat by the cabin fire, staring into the flames, answering his phone every time Leah's family called. "They're doing everything they can," he told her mother gently. "Please try to rest." When detectives questioned him again, he repeated his story word for word. Same tone, same rhythm, same pauses. Too perfect. 3 days later, a volunteer arrived at the command post with an unusual tip. "You might want to see this," the man said, holding out his phone. "I was flying my drone over the lake that day. Thought I caught something strange on camera." The screen showed two distant figures walking across the ice. A man and a woman. A few seconds later, the woman vanished. Detective Clark leaned closer. "Can we get the full footage?" The man nodded. "Already uploaded it." Outside, the snow kept falling, soft and quiet, erasing every trace of the crime, except the truth caught in that frozen moment above the ice. The man who brought the drone footage to police was a tourist from Montreal named Felix Morin. He had been in Muskoka that same weekend, flying his drone to capture winter scenery for his travel vlog. He hadn't noticed anything unusual at first, just the serene image of a frozen lake and two small figures walking across it. But after seeing the missing person report on television, he decided to check his files. What he found turned the case upside down. The drone's camera had recorded everything from above. A man in a dark jacket, a woman in a red scarf, moving hand in hand across the white expanse. Then, at exactly 12:58 p.m., the woman stepped ahead, following the man's gesture. Seconds later, the ice fractured. She plunged through. The man did not move to help. Instead, he remained still, watching, before calmly turning and walking back toward shore. The footage was clear, time-stamped, and damning. Detective Nora Clark sat in the small command center, the lights dimmed, the video looping on a monitor. Around her, the team was silent. The image of Leah's red scarf vanishing into black water was more powerful than any confession. "Freeze it," she said. "Enhance that frame." The tech officer zoomed in on the man's face. Even blurred by distance, his build, height, and clothing matched Raj Malhotra exactly. Within hours, investigators subpoenaed Raj's digital data, his smartwatch logs, GPS history, and text records. What they found confirmed the drone's story. Raj's watch had tracked his movement that afternoon. A slow walk from the cabin to the lake's center, followed by 31 minutes of total stillness. During that same period, Leah's phone went dark, its last signal pinging from the exact coordinates where the drone had filmed the ice breaking. It was science intersecting with sin, cold, empirical proof of murder. Detective Clark and her partner drove to Toronto that night. Raj was at the couple's apartment, sitting in the dim living room, TV muted. When officers knocked, he opened the door without hesitation, his expression composed, almost relieved. "Mr. Malhotra," Clark said evenly, "we need to talk about what happened on the lake." At first, he maintained the story. Leah had gone for a walk in the woods. Maybe she'd slipped, gotten lost, something tragic but unplanned. Clark let him speak, calm, patient, before sliding her tablet across the table. "Then explain this." The screen played the drone video. Raj's face drained of color. That's not what it looks like," he stammered. "Then what is it?" Clark asked quietly. He hesitated. "I tried to save her," he whispered. Clark leaned forward. "You never touched the ice, Raj. Your clothes were dry. Your watch recorded your heart rate, steady the entire time. That's not panic. That's control." Silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the building's heater. Finally, he looked up, his eyes empty. "She didn't love me," he said. "She was never going to stay." It wasn't a confession, not directly, but it was enough. 2 days later, forensic divers broke through the ice using GPS coordinates from the drone file. Beneath the frozen surface, they found Leah's body, her scarf still clinging to her shoulders, her gloves clenched. In her waterproof bag, her phone had survived just long enough to preserve the last image she'd taken, a smiling selfie on the lake, time-stamped minutes before her death. When the coroner's report came back, it confirmed the final blow to Raj's story. No signs of external trauma, no evidence of struggle. Leah had simply fallen through, guided by someone who knew exactly where the ice was thinnest. Detective Clark stood by the shore as divers surfaced with the body. The drone buzzed faintly overhead, recording the same lake, still white, still beautiful, still silent. Only now it no longer looked peaceful. It looked like proof. The snow had melted by the time Raj Malhotra stood trial in the Ontario Superior Court of Justice. Outside the courthouse, spring sunlight glinted off the glass facade, but inside, the air was heavy with grief. Reporters filled the gallery, their cameras waiting for the moment the man accused of killing his wife finally faced judgment. To the public, it was a story that seemed almost impossible. A newlywed honeymoon turning into premeditated murder, all captured accidentally by a tourist drone. They called it the honeymoon ice case. Raj entered the courtroom in a gray suit, thinner than before, his expression unreadable. When asked for his plea, his voice was calm, not guilty. The prosecution's opening statement was methodical and devastating. Assistant Crown Attorney Evelyn Hart addressed the jury with steady precision. "This is not a story about an accident," she said. "This is a story about control, humiliation, and revenge, disguised as love." She outlined the evidence. The drone footage showing Raj leading Leah across unsafe ice. The smartwatch logs recording his motionless stance for 30 minutes. The data from Leah's phone dying at the same location, and the witness statements about his contradictory accounts. Each detail painted a portrait not of panic, but of planning. Detective Nora Clark was the first to testify. She recounted the investigation step by step. How Raj's calm demeanor never aligned with the situation. How the data told a story he tried to bury under grief. The jury watched the drone footage in silence. The moment Leah fell through the ice, a collective gasp rippled through the courtroom. Clark described the recovery of Leah's body, her gloves still clenched, her face serene under the water. "It was peaceful," she said softly, "but you could feel how wrong it was." The defense tried to dismantle the timeline. Raj's lawyer argued that the event was a tragic misjudgment, that his client had panicked, frozen in shock rather than acting out of malice. They portrayed Raj as a man emotionally destroyed by rejection, not a killer, but a husband who made an irreversible mistake. When Raj took the stand, his voice was calm, his tone controlled. "I didn't mean for her to die," he said. "The ice just gave way." Under cross-examination, Crown Attorney Hart showed him still frames from the drone video. "That's you, isn't it? Standing there while she's drowning." Raj hesitated. "I thought it would break if I got closer." Hart didn't blink. "So you did nothing. You let her die." Raj's composure faltered for the first time. His voice cracked. "She lied to me," he whispered. "She was never supposed to." He stopped himself, biting down on the words. The courtroom went silent. His motive, the humiliation of a loveless marriage, now lay bare. When the defense rested, there was little left to argue. The evidence was scientific, irrefutable, unblinking. The drone had become the perfect witness, impartial, incorruptible, cold. On the final day, Leah's parents sat clutching each other's hands as the jury filed back into the room. The foreman stood. His voice was steady. "We find the defendant, Raj Malhotra, guilty of first-degree murder." Leah's mother sobbed quietly. Raj stared straight ahead, unmoving, as if the verdict had been decided long ago in his mind. The judge's sentence followed the law, life imprisonment, with no parole for 25 years. "You planned this crime," he said firmly. "You turned love into a weapon, and you used nature itself as your accomplice." Outside, reporters gathered as Leah's family released a statement. "Justice has been done," her father said. "But justice doesn't bring her back. Our daughter's laughter, her dreams, her warmth, all lie beneath that ice." As cameras flashed, Detective Clark stood in the background, her face solemn. For her, the case wasn't just about evidence. It was about truth, and how sometimes truth only emerges when technology catches what the human eye refuses to see. The lake thawed slowly that spring. By April, the ice had retreated from the shorelines, revealing dark, glassy water that rippled with every gust of wind. The same place that had once seemed like a honeymoon postcard now carried a silence that locals described as different, the kind that lingers even after the wind stops. For months, visitors left flowers by the dock where Leah Kapoor had last been seen. A simple wooden sign, placed there by her family, read, "In memory of Leah, Love should never end in silence. Her parents established the Leah Kapoor Foundation, dedicated to supporting women facing forced or arranged marriages, both in Canada and abroad. They said Leah's story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about how easily a voice can be silenced when tradition, expectation, and pride collide. Detective Nora Clark returned to Muskoka once that summer. The resort had reopened, the cabins freshly painted, the lake calm again. But as she stood near the water's edge, she couldn't shake the image of Leah's red scarf beneath the surface, that flash of color against endless white. Some places never forget, she murmured. In prison, Raj Malhotra maintained his composure, reading books, writing letters that no one answered. He never appealed his conviction. In an interview years later, he said only one sentence about that day. The ice was thinner than I thought. The world moved on, as it always does. The footage from Felix Morin's drone became a case study in digital forensics, a reminder that even the smallest piece of data can become the loudest witness. In law schools, professors replayed the clip as an example of how technology had changed the face of justice. And yet, for those who knew Leah, it wasn't about data or evidence. It was about the smile she wore in that final photograph. Unaware, trusting, full of life. The surface of Muskoka Lake freezes every winter, smooth and perfect once again. Tourists skate, children laugh, and from above, it looks peaceful, as if nothing terrible ever happened there. But under that calm white skin of ice lies the echo of a truth that can't melt away. Love, when twisted by betrayal, can be colder than the lake that buried her.